You're here because you're probably told that you need ceramic coating or paint protection film for your Tesla. So we're going to talk everything you need to know and if you need it or not in this video. What is PPF and ceramic coating? So PPF actually stands for paint protection film. And I think the best way to talk about it is paint protection film was actually, it started and developed by 3M for Blackhawks, for basically helicopter blades. And it was so that it doesn't cost so much to replace it, so they created this polyurethane-based film to protect from the blades from damaging so much. And then it kind of transitioned to like NASCAR, so that it can protect the car. And then now it's on your Tesla. So it has an interesting history. But I say polyurethane, and it has this thick kind of substance right here that is really, really thick, and it has self-healing abilities, obviously to a certain degree. So it's a thicker film, it's a sacrificial layer that sits on top of a surface that helps kind of take the damage instead of whatever you're trying to protect. Ceramic coating, on the other hand, is not necessarily a film, it's an actual liquid like this. And typically most ceramic coating, the most popular ones are going to be SiO2, which is silicon dioxide. That is the most common one that you'll see, and then you also have polysilicon, which is what this is. And we like using both, and we use it both, but what it does, the liquid bonds into usually the clear coat of the vehicle or whatever you're protecting, and then you basically do something called leveling, and we'll show you a little bit of that, and then you buff it, and when you do that, it creates a very, very nano layer of basically a coating. I mean, you can barely see it. So I think the best way to talk about it and show you is actually do like a paint meter. So I have this thing called a coating thickness gauge, which is really fun. But when we do polishing with this and so on, we sometimes use this to see how much can I take off, right? Because there is a limit of how much you can take off. So just so that you guys can understand, we're going to use micrometers or microns. Typical Teslas are between 90 to 160. Some other cars can be like 100 to 200 really. And that's kind of like the benchmark. So I have this right here, and you can see it's 0. Okay, that needs to be, okay, now it's 0 right here, and you saw that this was 0. So this is all zeroed out, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to coat both of them. And I have a strip right here for PPF, and just going to try to install this tiny little piece right here. And typically, if you notice what I just did, you basically use a little bit of soapy water. We call that slip solution. And then once we get to that, we just kind of do this. And you can see I'm actually using what we call matte film or stealth film, which is, it kind of mutes the paint. It takes out the glossiness out. And a lot of people like that. And it's become a lot more popular, I feel like, in 25. Okay, so I got this done. And then on this one, I'm actually going to do the ceramic coating. And we're just going to put a really tiny layer. This is, we use it on a project. I really should be wearing gloves, to be honest. Wear gloves. Okay, this is kind of hard to coat because it's so small. And typically you wait, we call it beading. You can see it kind of, it's got this wet profile. And then we do something called leveling. I mean, this is such a small area. I mean, there's not a whole lot of leveling to be done. And then after that, you kind of buff it. All right, so I got all of these basically buffed, okay? And with that being said, I want to show you the thickness now, right? So I told you this is a film. And once you do this, you're looking at almost 200 microns, right? So it's 183. I'm going to do it one more time. Yeah, like 200 microns, 185. Then you do this. There's a couple areas. It says 14.1, 5.8. So I didn't do a great job leveling, but you can see it ranges between 5 and 15 microns. So what is that now? Like, you're literally looking at like 10 versus 200. So you can see there's a huge difference. And I think the point that I'm trying to make is, with this being literally like 20x thinner, and it's not a sacrificial layer and a film layer, this isn't designed to protect from rock chips, just any forces really. What this does, it creates a barrier and a layer that does protect from things like bird poop and the elements, UV rays and stuff like that. It does protect from some of those things. But if you really want to protect from some of those things, this is what you want, which is paint protection film. So let's move this aside and let's talk about installation. So now that you've kind of had an idea about the gauge and the thickness of it, here's a little bit more in depth about how the install would work. That was kind of hard to see. So as I mentioned, we have something called slip solution, which is basically a fancy word for water and soap. We use dishwash soap actually. And then you basically peel off the liner, right? And these are typically 8 mil film thick, right? And then you kind of lay it down like this. And there was a lot of dirt on this thing. Sorry, this is just scrap we just found. And then you basically squeegee the water out, right? And this is a little bit different because I think most people are familiar with what we call vinyl, right? So vinyl is a lot more familiar because I think it's been around a little bit longer. PPF really took off and is really a big force, especially now that there's colored PPF as well. And you can see that when you do this, you're squeezing the water out. And when you do that, it creates this barrier. And in this one, you can actually see that it changed the sheen of it from a gloss. This is obviously a plastic hood, but it changed the sheen from gloss to matte, or what we call stealth. So this is basically a basic overview of how this is installed. A couple other things in this is when we're done with the edges, we typically flush it out with what we call tack. We like using red for that. And you basically, spray all around. And then you can also just kind of get all the edges out, and you can also fold it over. Like this is just a rectangle, so that's not really what we're doing. But this is not too bad. I think it takes a little bit of time to really get good at squeegeeing the right areas and so on. But I think the concept is easy for people to understand. So on the other hand, now we have ceramic coating. And when you do ceramic coating, it is essential that it is clean. This hood isn't the cleanest thing. However, and it's kind of damaged, you also don't want any moisture when you're doing ceramic coating. So what you want to do is wear gloves. Now I have gloves. And then you're going to go ahead and put some of this ceramic goodness. And your first one, you want to go a little bit heavy. And then what we do is we kind of go down the center, and then we go around the perimeter. And we do something called hatching, or cross hatch. And then you kind of move this around, okay? Obviously, this is not a real hood. And what you're doing is, we call this creating a river. And you have the thickest coat right here down the middle. And when you do that, and then you go under perimeter, and then you basically kind of grab some of that and then spread it out from the most heavy concentration, what it does, it spreads it out very evenly. And that's really the goal that you're trying to do. And then you wait, and depending on what you're doing, they call it like beading, sweating, and you'll see some of those things. I like using this one. This is Guion Mo's. Honestly, you have a long time. This is such a great DIY product, mainly because I'm not just saying that to sell this, but it's just a really easy product to use. But once you get to that point, we always use 2 different colors of microfiber because one is going to be leveling, where you basically just go around the perimeter like this, and you're not trying to buff anything, you're just leveling it out. And then once you level it out, you get your buffing towel, and then you just kind of really wipe it all down like this, okay? And you want to be very thorough, and then you can use a light, and then you can kind of see it. So here's the thing about install, right? What you saw, it'll seem really, really easy because I did it in a 1x1 foot hood. So it's a lot harder than it looks from a 1x1 hood. However, ceramic coating, I think, is not hard to do necessarily. It's obviously anything is hard to do really well. But what I mean by that is ceramic coating in itself is not a difficult process, in my personal opinion. What's really hard and what you're really paying for at a shop is doing this part. And this is just one aspect of it. But when you have a paint that is mostly clear coated, right? I'm not talking about a Cybertruck, I'm talking about just another car, like Model 3 or something. You have a layer of clear coat that you can basically cut. And what I mean by that, you're polishing it. It's a random orbital and you polish it. And then you have a bunch of scratches, and that scratches in a very microscopic layer, you're seeing dips, and those are what is showing as scratches. When you level that out, you get rid of it, and we get a very nice showroom kind of look. You do that, and then you ceramic coating, it looks like there's nothing better than like a brand new ceramic coating with a polish, and it looks amazing. So that's the hard part. For some people, they don't care, and I'm like, look, if that's the case, and you just want to be able to keep your car, you know, mostly clean, and you don't want to do a whole lot of work, ceramic coating is a great way, especially DIY. But if you want that perfect showroom finish, should probably take it to a shop. So that is the hardest part about the install for this. PPF, I would say, is still very difficult to be really good at. You know, I think the hard part is sometimes you do polish if you're doing gloss, not all the time. But then when you start getting into compound curves, and depending on what types of install, it can get really difficult. And that's why one of the things that we launched a few years ago was the DIY PPF kit, which you can get at our store. And basically, both of these, the number one thing that you're paying for is labor. And it's pretty expensive, mostly because of labor. Ceramic coating in itself is typically less than $100, but you're going to be paying for days of labor because you're going to be polishing most of the time. PPF, you're going to be paying for not really the prep. There's a decent amount of prep, but the material itself is pretty expensive. I think on average it's about $1,300 to $1,400 in material costs. And then if you do like a full car, I mean, you're still taking like 3 to 4 days. And in a shop, I mean, there's a lot of expenses, right? So depending on the region, it can get pretty costly. So I think for an average, this ceramic coating approach, let's just talk about a whole car so I can compare the two, you're looking at probably about like $1,200, $1,000 to like $3,000 for a full car. I'm not talking about like a hypercar or anything like that. I'm talking just like, you know, a Tesla Model 3S or something like that. On a PPF, if you do like gloss or matte, there is going to be a difference in price. But I would say if you're doing like a gloss PPF for the whole vehicle, not like a crazy bulk install or anything like that, you're probably looking at an average between like $5,000 to honestly $7,000 for a full car. So you can see there's a pretty big price difference between the two. And a big reason is the material cost difference, and then also the benefits, right? This one doesn't necessarily protect from the rock chips. This does. It is a sacrificial layer. So, I mean, that's really the biggest difference between the two. So, both of them can be DIY'd, and you're going to save a lot of money if you go that route. But if you want the ultimate protection, the best thing that you can do is actually do paint protection film and then ceramic coating on top of that. So the PPF actually does have a hydrophobic layer. All the top brands, Avery Denizen, 3M, Lumar, like Expel, they typically have a top coat layer that's very hard. That's sort of, that is kind of coated with a top coat that does have hydrophobic properties. However, that doesn't last forever. So oftentimes, installers will recommend, and I also recommend, to put another layer of a ceramic coating on top of the PPF, and that should make it last, you know, 2-3 years or something like that, or even longer in some cases. So now that we talked about the cost and some of the installation method, we're going to get a little wet over here and do some experimentation. So why do you need any of them? First off, the hydrophobic layer is kind of a big deal, because when you have a hydrophobic layer on top of your car, what it does is actually, in your context, what it means is like bug guts that has watery substance in it, bird poop, that's also kind of watery. You got acid rain, and all those things are gonna be removed a lot easier if you have any of these, right? So ceramic coating does a really good job from the elements, tree sap and stuff like that. It doesn't etch. I mean, it does etch. I'm not saying it will never etch, but it does etch a little less, right? But then on top of that, it has a hydrophobic layer like that, so water kind of sheets off a lot easier, very similarly. So I mean, both of them kind of very, very similar impact, right? On top of that, when you have something like this, right, you could even do like, if you had, you know, like a permanent marker on both. I don't know, I've never actually done this. We'll try it out. And then you can basically spray it down. And you can see it got rid of most of it. that didn't get rid of it. But part of it, it got rid of some, and I think this is a really good demonstration to show you, because also I didn't let this sit for long. The other thing though is that this is not an actual car. I really didn't give it time to bond, so I think it'll do a little bit better than that, but you can see that it did a little bit less, you know, this had a bigger impact right here. I mean, you can obviously see that. You can actually still see this, but it's definitely more faint. And the beauty about this is still on the film. So if this was bad, you can actually rip it off and then put another one, if that happened, right? I hope that never happens to you. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to do that. The other big reason, right? So, like, if you, like, honestly, ceramic coating is a great gig, I think. I think it's if anything, like, I would at least get the ceramic coating. That does help. One warning, though, is do not ceramic coat and then expect to do PPF after, right? Ceramic coating is the last thing that you always do, whatever you do. So if you wrap a car, color vinyl, ceramic coating after. You can't ceramic coat and then vinyl or PPF or anything like that. The hydrophobicity from it will basically not allow you to put any film on top because it just won't stick very well. So just keep that in mind. This is the last thing you always want to do, not the first thing, okay? So also the big difference between the two, and this is like a marketing thing that I think a lot of PPF companies do, but like a metal brush, right? This is supposed to kind of show, this is a dirty metal brush, but this is supposed to show kind of what would happen if you actually do this on a car that's ceramic coating. Oh, dang, that is nasty. So you can see right here a bunch of scratches. And I mean, I don't know if you could see that a little bit. I feel like it protected it a little bit, and you can kind of see a little less right here. Right here, that's where I kind of scratched it. So I'm gonna go right here. That's a dirty, dirty one. And you can see all the scratches. Can you see it on the camera? Kind of like the lines, okay? So you can see that, right? I'm gonna wipe it down a little bit better. So now that you can see that, it's kind of hard to see, but I can definitely notice some lines going this way. I can use heat or hot water. And you can see all of them went away. Those hair though, that won't go away. Those bubbles, you can get those out, but those hair will not go away. So, I mean, that really is the biggest difference, right? Like, this is a physical 8 mil thick, usually, layer that is a sacrificial on top of your car. So things like, this is to demonstrate things like rock chips or maybe light paint transfer, like all of that, it'll protect the vehicle. Ceramic coating, it will really have a limitation of, you know, the elements, the UV rays, you know, it'll still etch. Like if you left a bird poop there for like 2 months, it's gonna etch even though it's ceramic coating. So I think we try to educate our customers and be realistic about what each of these products can do. We never try to outsell and say, look, if you do ceramic coating, you never have to wash your car for the rest of your life. Like that's obviously far-fetched. And I think sometimes they may promise you that, but I'm just trying to be, you know, real about what each of them do. Obviously, there's a huge price point. So, I mean, you got to do what is best for you as well, right? If you're protecting from the elements, you want to make it a little bit easier to wash your car, but you like washing your car, and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money, then this is your best bet. This full protection, you could also coat it on top of that. A good middle ground too, and a lot of people also do this. I'm just going to put a pro tip here. Is a lot of people also do like the front PPF, so like the hood, the mirrors, the fender, the bumper, sometimes even the pillar, and then the rockers. And then they ceramic coat the PPF and then the rest of the car. And that typically is a much cheaper option than doing full PPF, full ceramic. You'll probably save about like 40% and so on. So that at the least, Protect the front and the rockers. I think those are the two what we call high wear areas that are going to be damaged the most. So, with that being said, I know that was a lot of info. Which is best for you? So, on a budget standpoint, I do think, kind of like what I mentioned, doing a DIY front PPF kit or just a front PPF kit, you're going to run around $2,000 on average, on the national average. Plus minus 500, honestly, depending on what region you're in. And then you can ceramic coat the rest. I think that is the best budget. If you really don't even want to go past that, I mean, at least it's not a bad idea to get ceramic coating only. Just keep in mind, again, you're not going to be able to do other stuff after you do this. So if you're sure about that, then just go ahead and coat the whole thing. You can ask some of those questions, what kind of paint protection, what kind of polishing do you do prior? Do you do any polishing prior? And so on. Those are some good questions to ask. As far as if you want the ultimate protection, you got to go PPF. It is the best product out there. It is the most it's the right product if you really want to do protection. It's thick. I mean, some of the films you can get like 10 mil thick and so on. So this was designed, for protection, whereas this wasn't really designed for protection in mind, right? Just like the history of how it came out to be. So if you really want full protection, this is going to be your best bet is paint protection film. So lastly, DIY versus pro. You can do DIY for both of it. I mean, we try to teach everybody and give them the option to whether go DIY or the pro route. If you're handy, you want to try it out, we have courses that you can watch and we teach you how to do every step of the way. Both are doable. I think the polishing part for the ceramic coating is going to be the difficult part. I think for the paint protection film, it is definitely possible. We've helped, hundreds of thousands of people help do DIY themselves. There is a learning curve. We never say it's like easy, but we believe it is the easiest kit that's ever been built for DIYers in mind. So I think both of them can be done. You'll save a lot of money, but if you don't have the time or if you're not handy, there's always going to be an option to do it at a pro shop. So hopefully that was really helpful in terms of talking about the two differences between PPF and ceramic coating. It's talked about a lot, and we wanted to do just a video about overall basically information and knowledge so that you can make the best decision for your vehicle, whether it's a Tesla or any other car. So if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. Happy protection, whether you go with either of them. Can't go wrong.